You all from Amnesty International at the I just want to thank everyone for coming out, and thank you so much to our speakers for making the trip to Boston. Charity Lee, Randy Gardner, and Shujaa Graham are our speakers tonight. And I was put in contact with these three speakers by Bill Pelkey, who is one of the founders of Journey of Hope, which is a great organization that works to look for alternatives to the death penalty and violence worldwide. Charity is also the founder and executive director of the Ella Foundation, and then Shujaa is coming to us from Witness to Innocence as well, which is another wonderful organization. I'll give it over to the speakers in just 1 second. I wanted to share with you all a letter I received earlier this semester that kind of catalyzed this event, at least for me. So one thing I learned earlier this semester was that Amnesty International has a mailbox. I was unaware of this before, so one day I went and I picked up 2 years worth of mail, and I went home and I sorted it all out, and I immediately started crying because I saw that one of the letters was return address Troy Davis, dated November 2010, I think. And so I just really wanted to share with you all kind of our inspiration. It was just like a really quick letter, but here is his words. Hello, Boston University. I was so touched to receive so many birthday cards from members of your Amnesty group. I feel confident that our future is in great hands, knowing so many young adults are fighting for justice and humanity. I encourage all of you to always educate yourselves and fight hard for what you believe in. Your strongest weapon is an educated mind. What you all learn today will decide your future. Be leaders at everything you do. May God bless and keep you all safe. Sincerely, Troy A. Davis. So I know I will keep Troy Davis and all other victims of our really crooked judicial system in my thoughts as we hear our speakers tonight. Our first speaker is Shujaa Graham. Shujaa is a death row exonoree who, since his release in March 1981, has organized in the Bay Area, building community support for the prison movement and protesting police brutality. He currently lives in Maryland with his wife and children and continues to campaign for justice within the judicial system.
Come back and give me a little hug. I do this day in my life, and I never thought I'd be able to do this. Don't play with this, okay? When I say that, in my life when I was on death row, I never thought I'd see this thing. So here I stand. Wounded by the blows of capital punishment, but not slain. Why I'm so happy to be here with you all. Wonderful and young faces, because when I went off and going through 4 trials, not knowing that I was going to live or die, it was young people like yourself. They weren't in college or universities. They was in middle school, 8th and 9th graders. They used to attend my trial, wouldn't go to school. Not this school for the purpose of just doing nothing. No, they heard about my situation. They looked at me as a political prisoner, and that I was being freed. So they set aside middle school education to learn about the criminal justice system of America. And my lawyer said, these little kids just keep bothering me and want to write you a letter and everything. And I said, give them my number, just tell them to write me. It's okay. Make a long story short, in that context, those young children stood with me. And they were the reason I'm here today. Not because of the system, but in spite of the system. Who am I? I'm Shujaa Graham, 61 years old, born and raised in a little small town called Lake Providence, Louisiana. I grew up under segregation and racism. As a little boy, my mother and father, I never knew my real father, but they went off for a better life. And I had to stay back 3 years in the South under segregation and racism. We had one police officer that was black. He could only arrest black people. That's segregation. When I come into a building, it was white only. I had to go to the back door. Then one day, after 3 years, my mother going off to California in search for a better life, maybe they thought it was the gold rush. Go to California, the gold rush, and everybody gonna be rich, right? But I thought the same thing, but my mother went on off to California for the next 3.5 years. I stayed with my grandmother and my grandfather. And that was the best 3.5 years that I ever had in the history of my life. They taught me pride, understanding, dignity, and respect for humanity. Boy, you're going to church this morning. You're going to Sunday school. I didn't want to go to Sunday school. I ought to go to Sunday school. I just hear them talk about this, but I like to go to the church and hear them preach. And then one day, it was like an answer to a prayer. I graduated to the 6th grade and still couldn't read or write. And I remember as a young boy that I never wanted the 6th grade teacher. Her name was Miss Fruell. I didn't want to be in her class. And all the teachers, there was I. You know why I didn't want to be in her class? Because when you show up, she didn't take no trouble. Hey, you come in there, you better be on time, in time. She hit your portion back. I said, oh my God, that little boy, I was terrified by her. I ended up in her room. Miss Fruell, never had a chance to hit old Shujaa Graham. I went home, I couldn't read or write. My grandmother said, son, they've been in her room for a week. And I went home and my grandmother said, son, you're going off to California. I said, oh my God, I was so happy. I said, Miss Fruell, you'll never get a chance to hit me. I said, going to join my mother and father, my sisters and brothers, and going off to California just like they went off. And my friends, I was so happy. I can remember when my mother left, we didn't have inside facilities when I was growing up as a little boy. You know, my mother, we had outside facilities. When you take a bath, you was on the back porch in a tub, and you make the best out of whatever you had. And I can remember going to California, and I was thinking that we were really poor, and I never seen the type of activities in the house in Louisiana. And when I got to California, I went into the kitchen and I pressed the button and water come out and went into the bathroom. Oh my God. And I'm pissed off at my mother for leaving when I was 7 or 8 years old. And I get to California, I'm thinking really rich, right? Because I see all this new stuff. I said, man, my mother just left me back there. Maybe I was too dark or whatever. But whatever it was, my friends, I didn't ever really understand how poor we was until I went off to prison. And I can remember coming there. It was 9 of us in the house, and we had 2 bedrooms. And we had bunk beds and up against the wall. And my mother and father did the best they could. And that's when my trouble began as a young man. I was an angry young man leaving the South. And when I got to the West Coast in California, I didn't have to say yes, sir, and no, sir. And I just didn't exert my understanding. Really, I didn't have an understanding, but I just went with the wind. I had a lot of anger, and I was fighting to get from under intolerant oppression, and this don't justify what I end up doing in my life. But I'm just trying to give you the picture of the story. And as I went through that experience, and I went off to jail when I was 13, 14. Each time I went off to jail, I said, I'm not coming back to prison no more. And each time, I went back to the same environmental condition that set me down. And each time, I went back. To make a long story short, at the age of 18, I was convicted and sentenced at San Quentin for a $35 bond. And I was chained up with a man called Yassin Muhammad. He was 45 years old. and I was 18. He hit my ear, and I listened to him with a perfect patience. And no one in my life has ever did that. He had the knowledge. He made me proud of understanding and wanted to learn how to read and write and understand the purpose of understanding history. And that's all, man. He said, here, read this. I said, I can't read. So he started showing me how to read. Taught me how to go to the dictionary and understand the meanings of words. From that day on, I was 18 years old. I was a gangster before then. At the age of 18, I denounced my past and became a new person. And since that day on, I've suffered more than I suffered when I was a gangster as a consequence of being a political person and trying to educate not only myself, but educate others how you can transform your criminal mentality into a political mentality. So when you leave prison, no matter what you've done, you can go back out into your communities and be a service to that community. I joined the movement in 1970 in the prison. I denounced my past and joined the political movement and started struggling for human rights. Same way like we talking here. In prison, when I was in general population, I was outspoken. I was talking about human rights, social justice. No matter what your crime was, no matter what you've committed, we're human beings. We can educate ourselves to a degree that we can come out this criminal mentality. And when we leave prison, we can be better people and better service to our communities. And once I committed myself to that movement, that's when my greatest struggle began. On November the 27th, 1973, I had been in prison for over 4 years for a crime that I committed, but I had joined the movement for social justice and renounced my past. And as a consequence of joining that movement, on November 27, 1973, I was transferred to a prison, a new prison, called the Dual Vocational Institute. And I was there for younger people. And I was only there for 4 months. November, I think I came to that prison. Can you hear me? I come to that prison somewhere June. I was only there a few months. And on November 27th, a prison guard was murdered. And I was accused, along with 200 and some other prisoners. They locked us all down. They tortured us. They brutalized us. When it's all said and done, myself and Eugene Allen, outspoken activist, was accused of that murder. I had an opportunity not to have to face death if I had cooperated with the guards and did and said what they wanted to say. Denounce my prisoners, denounce all the political philosophies that we had. And I thought about it just for a split second. And I thought about what Dr. King said. What's the gain? If you gain the world and you lose your soul. Because I've been in prison for over 5 years now. Everything that I've advocated, if I go back on it, I would be nothing. So I decided to take a stand. So for the next 9 years, I faced death. My first trial, the jury couldn't determine my guilt or innocence. My second trial, the jury determined that I was guilty. As a young boy, 20-some years old, standing up, perfectly strong and full of life. And all of a sudden we stand up. Mr. Graham, the jury have found you guilty and we sentence you to die at San Quentin. on December the 8th until gas had penetrated upon your personhood. I kind of blanked out on the rest of the conversation. Next thing I know, 30 minutes later, I was on San Quentin's death row. And think about it for a moment. When you were little boys and little girls, growing up, and you was accused of something that your brother, your sister, your other friend did, but you faced the punishment, and you got time out for it. Just for a few months. Just think how terrifying it was. Because I remember as a young boy growing up as a gangster, the worst thing my mother could ever do to me is tell me I couldn't leave that yard. She can do all, she can whoop me and everything. She said, you can't leave that yard and lock me down. And I was a young man. That was the worst thing. But think about it, you're finna lose your life for something that you didn't do. And for the next 7 or 8 years, you have to fight to prove your innocence. And when I go back to the original story, when I talk about the youth, it was those young students. Now listen to me when I tell you this. Don't play with this student. Because I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for those students. When I went to death row, the same little student that was in middle school was the first one to come up to death row to see me. Said, we're gonna get you out of here. He lived 2 little white kids, Brian and Sidney. Shujaa, we gonna get you out of here. You can laugh at me. We gonna, okay? I said, what the hell these little kids gonna do against the power of the state of California? They don't have a nickel. They just have a lot of idealism and enthusiasm, and they're gonna try to make it right. My friends, I never underestimate the power. Those young students organized not only the community, but the whole world. They went out and sold cakes. They made cookies. They went to churches. They went to universities. And they brought it to the world. And the next day, I knew, after 3 years on death row, after sitting there suffering, and everybody say how was it on death row, and I always like to tell people, think about your worst day. Your worst day. And then think about your worst day on death row. And each and every day promise you to be worse. Think about your worst day, and the unborn tomorrow promise you to be worse. How do you overcome it? I can't answer that question. Human beings have a capacity to endure and go on. That's all I can say about it. Each and every day, some days and I wasn't a modern prisoner. Some days the guards come by, I throw water on them. I didn't care if tomorrow they'd come. I sit there and read my books and I set them afire and throw them out. That's when you hear about they don't want to live. We want to live, we're just tired of suffering. And then one day, I programmed myself when I was on death row. It's an old saying, say, do the time and not let the time do you. So what I did, I programmed myself each and every day. I had an activity. 5 o'clock in the morning, I put my little radio on, they gave me, I listened to my music and do my exercise, and I turned the water on and get the towel after I finish exercise and do my push-ups and everything. And I shower. I put the water in the towel and let it drip off and look like a shower. And when the guards come by to serve me that morning, I'll be ready and shampoo myself down, pretending that I was in the normal world. And I did it for over 12 years of my life. And then one day I was kicking back on my bed. My cell was as big as, I'm no more than 5'11". I could sit in my bed and touch my wall with my feet. My basic mobility was from here to here for over 9 years for something that I didn't do. And then one day I was watching the television at 12 o'clock. I knew I had been active and a political person raised and inspired by the Black Panther Party, the original Black Panthers, the original peoples of the movement, white, black, and brown. Skin may differ, but affection dwells in white and black the same. Remember that. If I was so tall to reach the pole, the grass, the ocean, and the span, I still must be judged by my character, not by this. Then that day, I heard the court say, 2 black males, and I was convicted in 1974 for the murder and assault of a prison guard at the Duplication Institute. The Supreme Court have overturned a conviction because of the systematic exclusion of African Americans off the jury. And it went on and on. And I just went off into, I've only been up there for 3.5 years, but I had been in prison for much longer. And I knew it was something good, because I could hear the death row survivors hollering and screaming. And I just said, leaving it, going home. But it wasn't instant. It took me 2 more years, 2 more trials. First trial, third trial, the jury couldn't determine my guilt or innocence. And you would think as the Supreme Court overturned our conviction because of the systematic exclusion of African Americans off the jury, you would think that I would have African Americans on my jury. My friends, I went to 4 trials and had 1 black person. And that was just my original trial. All of my other trials was exclusively white because of the racism and discrimination. I was tried behind bulletproof glasses in the 70s. When you come into the courtroom, it was just like going through the metal detectors when you go to the airport. Then you had to sit behind like that glass right there, and I would be here. You would be back there. Ladies and gentlemen of the potential jurors, the defendants are being tried behind bulletproof glass, and I want you to set that aside. They have leg irons on. Set that aside. Give them a fair trial. Guards is on the roof. The prosecutor have on a bulletproof vest. This is not evidence. The defendants are presumed innocent. And most of the potential jurors, they had a hard time in dealing with that. Most of them that I never excluded from my jury, they said, when I come in here, I thought you had 2 guilty people because of the security and all the activities. But it was there. After 11 years, it was in my 4th trial. I was like a little boy. I had come to prison, and I'm gonna finish up on this. I had come to prison when I was 18. I denounced my past. I was 32 years old. And I woke up in my 4th trial, like a little boy. All I wanted to do is go home, see my little brother and sisters. I couldn't conceive for the life of me how I could go back to San Juan after 11 or 12 years to start again. And after facing the gas chamber, I was fortunate. I went into that 4th trial, and I can remember they said that my lawyer always said that we had an intellectual jury, and they said they have a verdict. My lawyer read into it. Oh my God, they got a verdict on one of you and not on the other. And I love my co-defendant, and I know he loved me. Not probably, he loved me, because they tried to get him to turn against me and give him time served, and he refused. He said, "I'd rather die," and that's a record book. So when he said a verdict, he said they got a verdict on one of you. I said, "Oh my God, the last thing I need to do is go down and have a verdict on one of them and not on the other." And I was the first one to stand up. When we got convicted, I was the last one to stand up. And when I stood up, and the jury read, we find the defendant, Mr. Graham, not guilty. And I can remember it was total chaos in the courtroom. And I can remember saying to myself, after 11 long years, my greatest nightmare has finally come to me. Friends, ladies and gentlemen, I've been out for over those 30 years. Each and every day of my life, I suffer as a consequence of that ultimate punishment that is so flawed, that is so filled with racism and injustice, that I'm just the beginning of those who have suffered what I have suffered. And when I left prison and they said not guilty, and I walked out that courtroom and I promised the prisoners, when I left death row to spend the next 2 years in the county jail, I said, if I ever get out, I said, I'm going to fight. And I'm going to make sure your voices are being heard. No matter what you've done and who you've violated, you're a human being. And I raise my voice for each and every one of you. If you commit a crime and hurt our society, we have a responsibility to protect our citizens. But we can protect our citizens without having to kill to protect our citizens. What the Tookie Williams said, the young crip that was murdered in the state of California, my beloved city. He said, what's the difference between a state that murders than an individual that murders? And the predetermined outcome is orchestrated death. He said, when someone robbed, do we enact robbery against a robber as a form of punishment? Of course not. When someone raped, do we enact rape against a rapist to show him that raping is wrong? Of course not. Why, when someone killed, we say life is the most sacred thing. And we kill to prove that killing is wrong. And what is the profit? We have states in America that don't have the death penalty, and their citizen is more safer than the states that have the death penalty. In the end, I just want to say, I've suffered and I tremble. But don't feel sorry for me. If you want to do anything, empathize and be active. I don't want you to go out and just sign petitions. I want you to use your talents. I don't know what your students going to end up being. I don't know what you're going to college and university for. Some going to be doctors and lawyers and teachers. But I want you to add one more thing to your vocation. Think of the vocation and add it to your education and stand up for social justice and human rights. And when you do this, it's going to make you a better teacher, a better doctor, and a better student. And when you become a better student and a better doctor, you're going to make America a better place for all the people of the world. And when you do this, you're going to make my work not be in vain. Before I close, I just want to leave you with the words of a condemned man that lost his life. I went to jail protesting the 1,000 execution. And I got up the next morning and I said, I can't stop here. Something told me to keep marching. The next morning, it was the 1001 execution in South Carolina. I got up and got out of jail. They bailed me out of jail. And I can remember, I had on my jacket. My group, Witness Innocence. But I had on the jacket that said 5 different reasons to oppose the death penalty. And we was on the news, and as I was leaving the jailhouse that morning getting out, one of the guys said, hey, Pops. He kind of made me mad when he said Pops, right? He said, you one of the people that was in jail and getting arrested, protesting the death penalty? I said, yeah. And when he said Pops, he kind of pissed me off. He said, give me that jacket. I said, I ain't giving you shit. I said to myself, Pops and shit, I'm out there fighting and stuff. You know what I'm saying? He said, I give you $25. I almost ripped it off my head. Pew! I took the jacket off. I said, I don't need this jacket. I said, I talk it all the time. I said, he needs it. When he go places, people ask him questions about what this means and what that's supposed to mean. And I took that $25 and we went to breakfast with the people that was in jail with me. And we went off to South Carolina. I didn't go to jail again though, but I protested. I had been fighting for 13 days for this individual. And he lost his life. I just want to leave the words with you, students, here at Boston University. I don't know all that he has said, but I do remember the part that touched my heart, and I want to leave you with the people of this university, this community, this state, this United States of America. And it goes something like this. The most happiest of peoples don't necessarily have the best of things. They just make the best out of what comes their way. Happiness comes to those who struggle, those who fight, and surely to those who have searched. For only they can appreciate the importance of those who have touched their lives. We can't go on well in life until we overcome our past failures, heartaches, and disappointments. The most brightest of futures would always be based on a forgiven or forgotten past. My sisters, my brothers, when most of you all were born, everyone around you were probably smiling and you were crying. Go on out and live your life so that when you die, you'll be the one that is smiling and everyone around you will be crying. Thank you all for having me here. God bless you all. God bless our panel, my beloved brother, Randy, and my beloved sister, who is here, who have traveled so many miles, and they will tell their own individual story. But I just want you all to stand up for human justice and human rights. Skin may differ, but affection dwell in white. As King would say, in white and black the same. But in my new era, I can change it around. Skin may differ. No. Skin may differ. Sexual preference may differ. But affection dwells in all of us the same. If I was so tall to reach the pole or grasp the ocean at a span, I still must be judged by my human characteristics, not by my preference, or not by my skin. When we do this, we'll make America a better place. Thank you, Amnesty. Thank you, my sister, for bringing us here. And God bless you. And long live the spirit for all of humanity.